Welcome to MEDU 108. I'm Tom Derthick. I'll be teaching the bass portion of this class. Shane Callback will be teaching the viola and the cello. Today's video is about how to transport, carry, store a double bass, and the basics of how to hold the thing and the set. So first, we have 4 brand new basses. You'll be the first ones to use these basses. They were purchased by the conservatory this past fall. Carrying the bass is what you usually do in the first class if we were in person. Today you have to see it on video because it's the only chance we get to actually be together. So here's how it works. You have these nice cases with lots of handles. They have wheels on the bottom. I suggest you do not use the wheels unless you are on a tile floor, indoors. Do not use them outdoors. Do not use the wheels on concrete. The bumping around hurts the basses. If you're wheeling around your kitchen on the tile, you're probably all right. Otherwise, pick them up using the handles. You're carrying the bass. The easiest way to do it, using the handles, sit the neck of the bass on your shoulder like this, grab the handles, pick the bass up with your back, like that, lean back, and no sideways, not this way, because you're wider this way and you bump into people walking down the hall and bump into doorways, sideways, like this, and you can carry it back and forth like so. Now, burning question. How do you carry it upstairs? Not like that, because if you carry it like this, you have to lift the bass, oh my God, and kill yourself. Best way to do it is to carry it behind you. Put your rear end in front of the bass like that. Pick it up. Now it's over a lower stair. You're climbing stairs like this. You're climbing stairs like that. And the bass you only have to lift up 3 or 4 inches off the ground. The same thing would work if the bass was outside of the case. Now, if your students or you are carrying the bass outdoors anytime, in the car, walking to the car, between the band room and the stage, always use a case. Do not carry the bass without a case. It goes out of tune in weather. It also can be damaged by weather. So you do not want to expose the bass outdoors to not having the case on. Inside the building, not a problem. So, forward. The first thing you do when you want to bag the bass, always, and I'll put it in front of the camera, thank you very much, take the bow out. Have these large bow pouches for the bows. The first thing you do when you're going to pack the bass, because if you lay the case down on the floor with the bow inside it, some kid's going to walk by and step on the case and break the bow. Always the first thing in, always the first thing out, always the last thing in. These cases are very nice. They have good hardware. You see a very large zipper right there. To unzip the bass, pull it to the top, use this handle and lift it off the top and pull it off. Make sense? I already have one unpacked, so I'm going to put this one back in the case. But before I do, we'll show you exactly how you would store the bass when you get home. The safest way to store the bass is laying on the floor on its side. Very logical, correct? If you have a corner and you wish to stand the bass in the corner, you may do so. I'm going to move this furniture here for a second. We'll make a corner out of this where this piano is. Should have thought about that before I started the video. Pretending this is a corner in your bedroom, leaning the bridge towards the wall with the upper shoulders, just like that. Otherwise, lay the bass on its side. If you don't have a corner, the side is fine. When you are transporting the bass in the car, lay it flat on its back. You may put the neck between the seats or sitting on top of the seats if you have an SUV or a station wagon. I want to show you a little trick for those of you who don't have a station wagon. I'm going to make this chair here the front seat of a car. And say you have a 4-door sedan. How would you load the bass in the car. Well, the first thing you would do, of course, is you would open the car door, you would recline both front bucket seats. And you would literally insert the bass upside down, neck first, putting the neck of the bass on the floor of the car. Obviously the seat would be down so the bass would sit flatter. So a bass will fit in any vehicle this way. It's obviously much easier if you have a hatchback, a station wagon, or a pickup truck with a cover on it. All right? Now, we'll get the unpacked bass and we'll talk about carrying it. So, these are very, very nice hybrid basses. They have carved tops and plywood ribs and back. They're brand new, like I said, you'll be the first ones to use them. When you're carrying them, as we talked about, without the case, grab the underneath the bass like this, put it on the neck on your shoulder, like so. If you're carrying it upstairs, put the bass behind you, sit your rump right there, grab the seat belt, lift up, climb stairs, not a problem. Always do this with the end pin in. Now let's talk about the parts of the instrument. And you probably, from taking violin last semester, know the scroll, the peg box, the nut where the strings go on the fingerboard. Fingerboard neck, the bridge, tailpiece, and then down below there, you see the end pin. This is how you adjust the height for both basses and cellos. On a cello end pin, they don't have notches generally, but on a bass they do because there's a lot more downward force. You want to set the height of the end pin, and it's okay if they can't see it. As you can see, there's a little wing nut down there. I've pulled the end pin out, I've loosened the wing nut, pulled it out, tightened the wing nut on a notch to make sure it won't fall. Now, the proper height is determined by a number of factors, but most easily of all, where the student's bow arm falls on their body. So when you're holding the bass the proper way, and we'll talk about this in more detail in a second, if your bow hand falls in the region where the bow is supposed to be, just below the fingerboard and above the bridge, then that's the proper height. Obviously, if you are a short person, if you're 5 feet to 5 feet 4 or 5 feet 5, you may never ever take the end pin out. It may be exactly the way it is with the end pin all the way in. I'll talk about in class how to play sitting down, but I always start leading students standing up so that if they're ever in a situation where there's no chair for them to sit on, they're not completely crippled. Okay, so now how to hold the bass. It's not what you think. Obviously, if we hold it like a cello, our thumb is having to balance it because we're not sitting down, it's not, our knees are nowhere close to the instrument, and it's kind of all out of control. We're going to take the rib, the side of the bass, and sit flat to our stomachs. So the bass will be sideways. Your feet, you can imagine Ultimate Fighting Championship. You would never stand with parallel feet because one finger in timber, you fall over. We want to be a stable platform for the bass. So left foot, a full stride in front of the right, slightly wider than shoulder width. Put the bass sideways with the rib, flat to your stomach, with the inside of your left knee on the back of the bass. That should allow you, ideally, too large a fill hold. Hold the bass without using your left hand. It's entirely held by your lower body so that your hands are available to take care of the bowing and the finger. Okay? Last thing before we finish this video, as we said, always store the bass laying on its side in rehearsal. Keep the other students in the other sections of the orchestra away from the bass section. They'll trip over them, step on them, break them. The basses are the most fragile of the string instruments. I know it's hard to believe, given their size. but the tuning has a lot more pounds of pressure on the bridge than on a violin. And the surfaces, top, ribs, and back, are much thinner proportionally than a violin. So they're much more susceptible to cracks, to breakage, to damage. So please, they're not furniture, they're musical instruments, treat them with respect. Now we're going to talk about the bow a little bit. First of all, in your bass cases, you're going to find, this is called a end pin cup or holder or hockey puck, little brass thing there for you to put the end pin in. So if you're on a tile floor, linoleum, hardwood, you won't put damage in the floor, the bass won't slip out from under you. If you're on carpet, you probably don't need to use this. Rosin, Pops rosin. It's very soft. The bass strings are so fat and heavy that we need to have a soft rosin to help the bow hair grab the string. Now, I don't know if this was done in violin class, but I'm going to do it now so you can see it. You completely unscrew the screw here. You can see the mechanics of how the bow works. There's a little channel right there that's hollowed out inside the bow stick. There's an eyelet that's mounted inside the frog. That goes in there like that. This screw goes through the drilled out hole and allows you to tighten and loosen the hair. When you are not playing, you want to loosen the hair about that much. You see how the few hairs are dangling, but not much? If you loosen it too much and leave it loose, the hairs will pull loose from the knots in either the tip or the frog, and you have to prematurely rehair the bow. Rehair costs about $75, so you don't want to do that. When you're tightening the bow, you want to tighten the bow so that if you press down, notice I'm not pressing down on my skin, you can barely touch the stick if you squeeze as hard as you can to the hair. Because you want that spring, the softness in the stick, helps you make sound. The soft rosin. Peel down the paper on one side so you have an edge, a corner. Unlike the powdery violin rosin where you put the bow back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, you can't do that here, it's too sticky. One direction, down bow only, like that. From the frog to the tip. Usually 2 strokes like that will be all you need. Now the other big difference in the bass between the bass and the other string instruments is there are 2 bows. Owing to traditions in the bass that relate to the other string instrument family, the viol family, we have a bow that looks like a violin or cello bow. This is the French bow. The grip will be similar to the cello and completely different than the violin. The violin, you put your pinky on top, that's going to cramp up in about 5 seconds. So on the bass, you would keep the thumb in that same location, right there at the end of the frog, and you would drape all the fingers over the bow stick, including the pinky. You'll probably have your ring finger on this metal part called the ferrule, just like that. So very similar to the violin, except you don't have the pinky up. It's going to be like that. The German bow, this is the bow, the underhanded bow from the viol family. As opposed to holding it on top like this, notice the size of the frog, it's huge. You hold the underhand. So, put the bow in your hand like that, all the way into the hand, not the webbing, into the hand. Wrap the thumb around the top, put the pinky on the bottom, however it sits, it can be curved, flat, doesn't really matter. Your pinky will be different sizes, entirely up to the student. The 2 fingers on top here, the middle and the index, go on the side of the stick with the middle finger ultimately is going to have more to do with the playing than the index finger will. And the ring finger, as you can see, sits in the big gap and does nothing. This is the underhand grip. The mechanics of the bow arm, other than the fact that this is underhand and this is overhand, are exactly the same. So make sure when you're finished that you loosen the bow hair and that this is the last thing that goes into the case when you're done practicing. All right, any questions? Email tderthick@pacific.edu. Look forward to seeing you in class next week.